بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Our first question for today is from Ahmed. Ahmed says, it is believed in the subcontinent that if a person is inflicted by evil eye, moving and spinning peppers on his head and burning them will cure the evil eye. I know it's baseless, but I cannot convince the people. Can you please make a video on it so this practice is minimized or stopped? Ahmed, it is not only limited to warding off evil eye and the rest of such things. It is deeply rooted in people's hearts that they follow what their peers, what their shaman, what their soothsayers tell them, rather than following the Quran and the Sunnah. And Allah tells us in the Quran, وَمَا أَكْثَرُ النَّاسِ وَلَوْ حَرَصْتَ بِمُؤْمِنِينَ. And the vast majority of people will not become believers even if you are keen on making them. O Muhammad, if you look around in the Muslim world, you will be shocked by the amount of Muslims who practice so many things other than Islam. The way they pray, the way they deal with one another, the transactions they are doing. If you look at even their aqeedah, which Islam is based upon, you will find it corrupt. And this is shameful. It makes us sorry and it breaks our hearts to see Muslims doing this. And what adds insult to injury is that when you come to them and you present them with the Quran, with the authentic Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, the majority of them would shrug their shoulders and say, this is how we found our forefathers worshipping and believing, and this is what we will remain to doing until the Day of Judgment. And this is very sad. But unfortunately, we cannot do anything other than making dua for them and continuing to show them the proof from the Quran and from the Sunnah. When someone says, La ilaha illallah, prove it. You claim that there is no God worthy of being worshipped except Allah the Almighty, yet you are worshipping someone else. Then you are in deep trouble. Evil eye. There are people who do not even believe in it. So envy, evil eye, jinn possession, black magic, all of these supernatural things that we cannot see are mentioned in the Quran and are authentic. Therefore, when we would like to treat them, we do not go to soothsayers. We do not hang amulets or ta'viz or go to sorcerers to help in solving our problems, because this would be shirk, the cardinal sin, as they say, the most major sin on earth that Allah does not forgive if a person dies doing it. What we do is we look into the Quran, to the Sunnah. Do we have any cure? Do we have any treatment for solving this problem, for uplifting this evil eye? And the answer is yes, we do. The Sunnah is clear. The Prophet ﷺ visited Sahl ibn Hanif, may Allah be pleased with him, when he fell sick. So he asked around, do you accuse anyone of giving him the evil eye so that he would fall sick like this? And they said yes. He was washing his body, and a companion saw him, and he was amazed by the clarity and beauty of his skin. So he said, giving him the evil eye, unintentionally of course, because evil eye does not come intentionally. He said, I have never seen such soft skin, as if it's the skin of a virgin. Of course, both of them are men, and both of them are true natural men. They don't have any inclination towards homosexuality, may Allah forbid, like sick people do today. But he was amazed by, seriously, the softness of the skin. And Sahl ibn Hanif fell on the ground, and he was sick on the spot. So when they told the Prophet ﷺ, he was very angry. And he said to that companion, why does one of you attempt to kill his brother by giving him evil eye? Wouldn't you have said, Allahumma barik, or Allahumma barik lahu, or barakallahu laka, which all is stemmed from blessings of Allah. Then the Prophet ordered him to do something, and this is the best cure for the evil eye, if you know who gave it to you. The Prophet ordered him to perform ablution and to wash the inside of his garment, his waist wrapper, his thobe, his shirt, his trousers, the inside of it that touches his body, to wash it, and the water all is collected in a vessel. Then he ordered them to throw the water over the head of the affected person. In some narrations, from behind him. So he stands in the bathroom, someone from behind him gives him a bath or throws it on top of his head and his body. The hadith goes on to say, Sahal instantly stood up as if nothing had been wrong with him. So this is the best form of treatment for evil eye. What happens if I don't know the individual? In this case, one is supposed to recite the proper ruqya. Al-Fatiha, Ayat al-Kursi, the last two ayahs of Surah Al-Baqarah, and the last three quls, Al-Ikhlas, Al-Falaq, and An-Nas. And he can wipe all of his body by cupping his hand and reciting in it and blowing and wiping his body multiple times. He can recite it over a glass or a cup of Zamzam water or normal water multiple times and drink it throughout the day and the night, and inshallah within few days he will be cured with the grace of Allah Azza wa Jal. As for turning peppers or spinning peppers on his head and burning them, this is a ritual that most likely is a sacrifice for the jinn. The people do so many things thinking that it is ways of bringing barakah, unknowing that this might be asking the jinn to be pleased by doing it. When there's a ritual in some Muslim countries, when a person builds a house, he would go to the foundation of the house at early stages, slaughters a sheep, and with the blood of the sheep, splashes it on the foundations. What is this? Some even do something else, which is slaughtering the sheep on the steps of the house, at the entrance, when the house is finished, and sheds the blood there. What are you doing? He said, I'm slaughtering for barakah. You're sacrificing for the jinn, because you want the jinn not to annoy you, not to inhabit the house. So you give them this sacrifice, because this is not for Allah Azza wa Jal. And the way you're doing it is definitely not for Allah. So spinning peppers, and I don't know if it's chili, if it's red or if it's green. We know that the people in the subcontinent love chili, but this is totally baseless. It's not related to Islam, and it may take a person out of the fold of Islam if he's doing this for the jinn, because this is a form of sacrifice other than to Allah the Almighty, and Allah knows best. An anonymous person says, my father verbally abuses my mother every day, who is very patient but cries silently. My parents live alone and I visit them weekly. When the abuse happens in front of me, I try to stop my father respectfully and tell him all that my mother does for him. But he gets angry with me for supporting my mother. Am I sinful? How can I help my mother, as she's also getting old and it hurts to see her suffer? In Arabic, we have a saying that, "O you who interfere between an onion and its skin, you would gain nothing but the bad smell and the tears coming from your eyes." Now, I wouldn't say mind your own business, because both of them are your business. But the problem is that taking sides would make you undutiful to the other side. Not only that, it would cause more trouble, because they didn't come to you to help them solve their problems. Both. One of them did. And by intervening like this, you would lose your father. While what you're supposed to do is to remain neutral. Your mother has been with him for so long, she knows him, she's accustomed to his abuse, and if she doesn't want to take such abuse anymore, she can make a stand and she can demand that. But this is not for you to choose or to arbitrate. If your father comes for you for counseling or for an advice, then this is great. If you know that whenever you intervene and try to stop him respectfully, as you have described, and this works, and your father is okay with it, this is also fine. But if it is the other way around, then definitely you should stop, you should refrain and be quiet, or leave the room if you are hurt, which would give the signal to your father that what he's doing is not something of your liking. Plus, you should talk to your mother, and you should tell her not to let this get under her skin. Tell her that whatever he says, block your hearing, give him a big smile, don't argue with him, don't defend yourself. And after 5 or 6 incidents of him speaking to himself without any negative response from you, without shedding any tears or crying, he would refrain. He would stop because he would feel silly for talking without any reaction from you. But the moment you start to cry, the moment you start to be sad or depressed, you've made his day. So you tell your mom not to do this, and inshallah, things would become a little bit better. Remember that Sheikh Al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, I believe, was asked by a man. He says, my mom tells me to do something, and my father tells me to do something else. Totally opposite. One says go right, and the other says go left. What should I do? The Imam said, obey your mother and do not disobey your father. How is this possible? I cannot obey them both. One says go right, and the other says go left. I cannot obey them. He said, this is all what I can tell you. Obey your mom, but do not disobey your father. Because he cannot tell you to choose sides. He cannot tell you to disobey one or be undutiful to one of them. May Allah make it easy. A sister says, my husband commits adultery. I do not want to be close to him. Can I give him an ultimatum that only when he stops he can come to me, or am I sinning regardless? First of all, I do not know if these are only doubts or true accusations based on concrete evidences. If we assume that these are only doubts, then you're sinful for not complying with his demands and fulfilling his rights. In Islam, we do not base our actions on doubts. We base our actions, our views, our verdicts, and our choices on certainty. I could doubt, and this is opening the door for shaitan, for the devil, for Satan to mess up with my mind. I can open the door for all types of doubts. A brother comes and says, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh, how are you? I'm doubtful. Is he a Muslim or a hypocrite? I haven't seen him pray for a couple of months. Maybe he's a kafir. So I don't give salam back. A'udhu billah. I enter a masjid, and I've seen this with some of the brothers. We see people seeing a masjid, the majority of them go to pray, and one says, you guys pray, I'll wait for you in the room. Why don't you come and pray? He says, I don't know about the imam. What is his aqeedah? Maybe he's this, maybe he's Ash'ari, maybe he is Deobandi, maybe. So because I don't know his aqeedah, I will not pray behind him. A'udhu billah. You cannot doubt people like this, because then I'll doubt whether you are a bastard born out of wedlock or not. How dare you? This is my ID card. Yeah, but I wasn't present when your father married your mom. And I don't know if she was pregnant at the time or not when he married her. They could have been in a relationship. And if you go on this road, you'll end up either being a takfiri, or you'll ruin your life and the life of those around you. I get callers calling me with OCD, being possessed, that with the idea that his marriage was invalid years, decades ago. And he keeps saying that, okay, maybe I wasn't a Muslim, I said the Shahada, now do I have to renew my marriage? Wallah, the guy is calling me and he's relentless, no matter what I say and do with him. To the extent that he said, Sheikh, khalas, I renewed my marriage contract. Okay, but now I want to know, are my children born out of wedlock? Should I get rid of them, or they're still my own children? A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. It is you who open the door for shaitan, and you will only suffer the most and those around you. Therefore, if you are doubtful of your husband, you should cast these doubts away and fear Allah Azza wa Jal and act as he's still faithful until proven otherwise. But if you have concrete evidence, if he has confessed of his heinous sin, or of his relationship with his co-worker, or with anything that proves to you that he is an adulteress, or an adulterer, that is. In this case, you have all the right to refrain from sleeping with him, because any normal person would fear catching STDs, sexually transmitted diseases. Anyone would fear that. So it's your God-given right to protect yourself and health, and to refrain until you are certain that he's committed, until he makes his medical check and proves to you that he has no illnesses, and then you can resume that without a problem, inshallah. Beanish says, can I start the business of replica products by selling for cheap but letting people know that it is not the original item? When you sell or buy a replica, there are two rights here. The right of the consumer, he has to know that this is not an original. I'm not paying this much for a counterfeit. Rather, I'm paying it for an original. So you have to tell him that, no, this is not an original, and this is a counterfeit. It's a replica. And then there is the right of the owner of the brand, the copyright. If I have a company with a brand that I've invested so much and produced this item after being designed and tested, etc., and then all of a sudden you come and copy that and put my logo, my name on your replica and sell it for 1/10 of the price. You are depriving me from my rights. It is like you're stealing off me. And this is totally haram and prohibited. Even if that person or that company is a kafir company. Allah does not allow you to transgress and take what is not yours simply because he's a kafir. Otherwise, we would have been rich by now. We have pledges. We have commitments. We have deals and contracts, treaties with others that compel us not to transgress like this. And therefore, even if the customer knows that this is not an original, this does not give you the right to sell it, because the owner of that brand does not approve of it. And hence, selling it would be haram, and the money you make out of it is haram. Fake items are used only by fake people. If you allow yourself to wear a Daytona Rolex, which is fake, and you show off and you're happy going out boasting with it on your wrist, you're a fake person. If you cannot afford the original, don't pretend. You can fool the whole world, but would you be able to look in the mirror at yourself wearing such a fake thing and be happy of it? Selling it is totally prohibited, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. We have a short break. Stay tuned, and inshallah, we'll be right back.
Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today I'm going to talk about the book Interactions of the Greatest Leader. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam reminded us through his guidance and example that Islam is complete submission to the will of Allah. For one who submits, a mere declaration or display of belief will not be taken for success, but his or her heart and soul will certainly be put to test. Allah tested the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam severely in order that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam becomes an example for his companions to follow. Similarly, he tests the believer to see whether he lives a righteous life in accordance with the instructions and commands set by Allah, or lives according to what his desires dictate. Whether the faith he displays is firmly rooted in his heart, or is it merely on the surface. He will be tested to see whether he will continue to have faith and love of Allah when in a calamity, as he does when in comfort, whether he will continue to remember and worship him if given bounties and comforts of life, as he does when he lives a modest life. Allah will undoubtedly test him to see if his faith, trust and love of him is unconditional, or is it conditioned upon good health and a comfortable life, free from stress and anxiety. The Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam showed us through his own example that for a righteous Muslim, this life is a testing ground where he will continue to be tested until he meets Allah. For him, tests will be conducted on earth while he lives, and not after he dies. He knows that as soon as death arrives and he steps into the next world, his tests are over. There, he only receives the result of his tests and enjoys the fruits of the deeds that he committed during a short span of time called life.
Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Umar says, can we use hair fibers that are available in the market? This new product, which contains powder that connects to the fibers of the hair to fill the parts of the hair which is thinning and turning bald. And does this affect ghusl and wudu? First of all, I have no idea about such fibers. But if it is something that people apply, they spray on their heads, if I take off my top, you will find that there are so many empty places. This comes with age. And usually, people either shave it or they trim it with a trimmer so it would look presentable. There was a substance that people spray on these empty spots on their head. And it is sort of a color that would reach the scalp. So instead of seeing the skin, the scalp itself, you could see the whole thing in the same shade of color. So it looks like he's not bald anymore, or there are no bald spots. If such substance can be easily washed when you're performing ghusl, this has no impact on your purity. So if I take a shower, it immediately rinses off, no problem of using it. What about wudu, Sheikh? Wudu is a lighter case compared to ghusl. Meaning that if I have normal hair and I apply hair gel, which is a hard, shiny substance that would make my hair stick together like a form of glue, and it gives it some, I don't know, glitter or shine to it. Now, this is definitely a barrier that may block water from reaching my hair. In performing wudu, there's no problem in that. Meaning that if I perform wudu and I wipe over my head, which has this gel on it, the wudu is okay. But if I perform ghusl and the water does not reach the scalp and it does not remove this, then the ghusl is invalid because there was a barrier. In wudu, I don't have to wash, I only have to wipe over. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ, when he went to Hajj, he used to يُلَبِّدُ رَأْسَهُ, meaning to put a certain material on his hair that would keep it intact and protect it from the sand and the dust, etc. This is known as talbid. And he used to perform wudu normally by wiping on it. So if these fibers make a layer on your hair, yet it is easily washed off when doing ghusl, there's no problem in it. And definitely if you wipe over it in wudu, you will find traces on it on your hands. The color itself has to wear off when you wipe on it with water. Again, this is okay, not a problem. Now, one little problem is that if you have white hair, and by applying these fibers, your hair looks black, then this is considered like dyeing your hair with black. And this is prohibited for both men and women. But if the color is dark brown, if your hair is all black and you apply this to hide these bald spots, then there's no problem in it, insha'Allahu azza wa jal. Amisha says, my question is, if a human is unable to bear the pain and suffering, and if he asks for mercy killing, is it allowed? Should we accept it? Same is for animals. If it is suffering so much, can we put it to rest? First of all, I beg to differ because humans are unlike animals. A human soul has great weight at the sight of Allah Azza wa Jal, unlike animals. So we cannot compare both to each or to one another. Now, mercy killing, or known as euthanasia, is prohibited in Islam. Regardless of the amount of pain and suffering an individual goes through, this is his test and calamity from Allah Azza wa Jal. He must endure it because this is his test. If he fails, he goes to hell. If he succeeds, he goes to paradise in the highest level eternally. forever. The Prophet tells us, alayhi salatu wassalam, and the hadith is in the Sahih, when there was a battle between the Muslims and the disbelievers, and there was this Muslim man who kept hitting right, left, and center, killing the disbelievers and the idol worshippers, and doing really well in battle. So the Muslims were pointing at him and saying that, whoa, nobody did well today like so and so. The Prophet heard this, alayhi salatu wasalam. He looked at him and he said, he is in hell. All of the companions were shocked. Now we're battling, we are fighting in the cause of Allah, and this guy is doing the best among us. And the Prophet says he's going to go to hell? Then what are we fighting for? One of the companions said, I will accompany him, I'll follow him, and I'll bring you the news. So during the battle, this guy kept on fighting behind him and watching him until he saw this brave man getting wounded in battle. And it seemed that he was in real pain and suffering from his wounds. He could not tolerate such pain. So he took the tip of his sword, he placed it between his breasts and put the other end on the ground, and he leaned forward until it penetrated his chest, coming out from his back, and he killed himself. And the Prophet ﷺ, while resting, the man came and he said, I believe that there is no God worthy of being worshipped except Allah, and that you are the messenger of Allah. So the Prophet said, what's up? What is it? He said, O Prophet of Allah, the man you talked about earlier and said he's in hell, he did this and this and this, and then he killed himself. So the Prophet ﷺ said, by Allah, a man performs well for 60 years until there is only 1 foot between him and entering paradise, and then he ends up doing something wrong and he dies while doing it, and then he goes to hell. And a man does bad sins 60 years of his life until there is only 1 foot between him and hellfire. Yet then the preserved tablet states that he makes something good at the end of his life, and he dies while doing it, and he ends up going to Jannah, to paradise. Therefore, what is called as mercy killing is totally prohibited. This is murder. If I assist someone over this and I help him to euthanize him, by euthanizing him, I am the murderer. And if he does this to himself, because there are doctors who would tell him, do this, do that, add this, stop taking that until he dies. If he does it to himself, this is called suicide. And this is a major sin. Now, coming back to the issue of animals, with animals it's different. If a cat is in real pain, if a dog is in real pain and is suffering, and the doctors say there is no cure for that pain, there's nothing wrong in killing that animal and putting it to rest, putting it to sleep, as they say. There's nothing wrong in that because it's an animal. I'm not killing it for the sake of fun or enjoying it or transgressing against it. Animals are not tested like humans. So they can be killed when there is a need to kill them, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Adallah, and I don't know what Adallah, most probably the name is Abdullah. And this was a misspelled name. A lot of the people, by the way, and this is before going to the question of, let's say, Abdullah, a lot of the people put prefixes to the name of Allah that do not make sense. And they call their children anything as long as they attach the name of Allah to it. And this is wrong. You want to call your son something, use the prefix of Abd, the slave of. So you say Abdullah, there's no problem in that. But to put other prefixes, sometimes meaningless prefixes, this is not permissible. Abdullah says, what kind of object can someone or should someone place as a sutra in front of him or her while performing salah? And how far from one's standing position should the sutra be placed? What is the meaning of sutra? If you remember, we've mentioned this so many times. A sutra is a visor, is a sort of a screen that a person puts in front of him, so it identifies his prayer parameters, his prayer limits. And this was done by the Prophet ﷺ. And he ordered the Muslims, whenever they pray, that they place such a sutra in front of them. And scholars say it should be this high, about a foot high, and you place it in front of you. So if you bring like this iPad in front of you and place it, this is sufficient. If you bring the carrier of the Quran and you open it in front of you, this is sufficient. If you pray to a pillar of the masjid or to a wall or to a person who's sitting or to a chair, all of this does the job, insha'Allah. Some schools of thought say that even if you draw a line in front of you, this would suffice. And others say the lines in the masjid, which people usually put their feet and align it to it when straightening the rows, this is sufficient. But this is not true. It has to be something that is elevated from the ground. The Prophet, whenever he used to travel or whenever he wanted to pray in some place other than the masjid, they would place in front of him a anazah. And a anazah is a short spear. Some people, when they read it in the books of fiqh, they would read it as anza, because there are no vowels on it, so they would read it as anza, and anza means goat. And you would see people putting a goat in front of them and praying to it, and the goat moves, and the guys move alongside. What are you doing? Said the Prophet used to pray to a goat. No, the Prophet used to pray to a anazah. And this is a short spear, not a long one, the short one. The same anazah was used by the Prophet ﷺ when going in tawaf around the Kaaba, and if he could not kiss or touch the black stone due to the crowd, he would touch it with his short spear, the anazah, without harming people, of course. So this is the sunnah that a person should follow. Muna says, is a husband entitled to provide for his wife when she's not living with him? What if he is working abroad and she's staying at her parents' place? Is the ruling the same in this situation as well? The issue between the spouses, the issues are plenty. And among the top 10 would be the issues of provision, of financial expenditures, of maintenance, especially when the wife lives in a different place. Now, if the man is living abroad, or if he's living in the same city, and the woman leaves her husband's house to her parents' house, it's one of two. Either he allowed her to move out, or he did not allow her to move out. So if he did not permit her to go to her parents' house, then she is a disobedient woman because she left without his permission, and she does not deserve any maintenance, and he is not obliged to provide for her. But if she has children, he is obliged to provide for them because they are his responsibility, even if they were on the moon. If she left the house with his permission, in this case, he is obliged to provide for her as if she is living with him, even if he's working abroad, even if she's staying with her parents, because this is his responsibility. And I am shocked. How would a man, quote unquote, be considered a man if he stops providing for his wife, for his children, if he deals with them like dealing with his business partner, asking about every penny spent, where and why, and interrogating them? This is not befitting for a man to do. A real man knows that Allah Azza wa Jal stated that men are guardians over women due to what Allah has favored them with and due to their financial expenditure upon them. الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض وبما أنفقوا من أموالهم. What they spend from their own wealth. But when it comes to this type of dealing, I get so many questions from sisters saying that their husbands refuse to support, to provide for them, though they are well paid, and they demand that the wife takes a job because his mother wants her to work and to contribute to the financial expenditure of the house, or to do this or to do that. I'm shocked when I hear such questions and stories of so-called, quote-unquote, men. This is totally prohibited. A woman's place is in her house. Takes care of it, takes care of the husband, takes care of the children. If she's not married, she takes care of her mom and her father. She's not obliged to work at all. While the man's role is to work, to provide, and to put food on the table. This is his responsibility in Islam. Sayyida says, my question is, I heard many times that Allah loves us 70 times more than our mothers. Allah holds 70 times more love for us. Is this true? As for the aqeedah of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we believe, as mentioned in the Quran and in the authentic Sunnah, and how Allah described Himself, that Allah loves. So many verses in the Quran that Allah Azza wa Jal loves the righteous, loves those who repent, loves those who forgive, loves so many things. Allah loves. But Allah Azza wa Jal also hates and abhors disbelief, sins, acts of transgression, shirk, and so many things. And this is how we worship Allah Azza wa Jal, with such a conviction that Allah loves and hates. And Allah's love and hate is different than our love and hate, because Allah's attributes are unlike any of others' attributes. So Allah's love is different than our love. Allah's anger is different than our anger. This is something divine. This is something that no one shares it with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Having said that, we do not need fabricated hadiths to highlight such love. And therefore, when someone says that Allah loves us 70 times more than a mother loves her child, we ask for an authentic hadith. The evidence. Because I can make claims from here till the day of judgment that are baseless. But this is not how things work in Islam. If I claim something, you have all the right to challenge me. Where does Allah say that He loves and He hates? How do you claim that this is the aqeedah of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah? No problem. We can prove that. Come and sit with me and I'll show it to you from the books of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. I'll show it to you from the Quran. I'll show it to you from the Sunnah. It's easy. But to come and claim things and simply say, Simon says, you have to obey, without any proof, then this is not how Islam works. Therefore, to my knowledge, there is no such hadith of stating that Allah loves us 70 times more than a mother loves her child. We know of Allah's mercy in that Allah Azza wa Jal created the mercy into 100 branches or types or levels. Only one was placed on earth, and the 99 were upheld by Allah Azza wa Jal for the day of judgment. From this 1% that Allah placed on earth is when a beast uplifts its foot from stepping over its children. This is the mercy that we have. All over the world, it's 1% only. So this is as for the mercy of Allah, but as for the love, I do not know of any authentic hadith. This is all the time we have. Until we meet next time, I leave you fi amanillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.